another episode of For the Life of Me. I am Asya Lachey. I feel like I forget to say that quite often, but
oh, that's your moniker, Asya Lachey?
It is.
Okay. Say no.
As you can see, I'm not here by myself. I have my friend. Y'all can just go around and say y'all name real quick.
I'm Nika.
I'm Bryan.
I'm Jonathan.
I'm Victoria.
I'm Ryan.
Yes. Okay, so we are about to get into a very sensitive topic.
The mood is so different right now.
We're gonna get into a very sensitive topic. We're gonna be discussing parent trauma. So how I came up with this topic is, and I couldn't find it. I was trying to find it, but there was a post, and I believe it was in a Facebook therapy group I was in, but I couldn't find the post. And they were discussing how a lot of times when we talk about parent trauma, we talk about, absentee fathers and stuff like that. But they had a really very just interesting thread going on how their relationship with their mother affected friendship or how they viewed friendship. And it resonated with me so much because me and my mom have a very interesting relationship. We good today. We are much better than what we used to be. But when I first moved here, when I was 14,
Give me a little back right now.
When I first moved here, when I was 14, I was already going through a lot of trauma. To keep it short, my father was on drugs, selling drugs. He was, doing his thing. And I ended up, I normally come to stay with my mom for the summer, and I ended up just staying. However, that was the first time that I ever just stayed with my mother. So our relationship was just tumultuous. Like it was a lot. Like
Brand new, a lot to deal
well,
with.
because I'm a teenager, and the way that my father parents and the way that she parents is different. Like me and my father have conversations. My mother is, I ain't talking to you about nothing. What I said is what I said, and this is what we doing. And so when I used to try to have conversations with her, it was like disrespectful, or you sound like your father. And those things like used to just trigger me so bad because I was a daddy's girl. It was the audacity of you to say, I sound like my father. In a negative way, it was just very like annoying. But what I realized as I got older is that some things that we don't realize is that, or I didn't realize at the time, is that our parents have their own trauma. So their parenting style was based off of their trauma and the things that they went through, which as I got older made it easier for me to forgive my mom. But I do believe that my relationship with my mother may have affected, and my father, like he not innocent here, but I believe that my relationship with my mother affected some of my friendships. I felt like I was just very on guard. And I also, because my mother moved away at a young age and left me with my father, I always found myself trying to prove myself to people, or trying to make myself seem valuable to other people. It's like, no, I'm worth it. You should be my friend. You should be my person. I can in elementary school, because I can give you little Kool-Aid bags. What you need? Candy, I got it.
I call it replicating respect.
Yeah, that's good. But absolutely, like so I felt like this was a good topic to discuss because I feel like we don't talk about it enough. We always be out here talking about relationships and what we need to do to get this, but we need to talk about some other stuff so we can heal, really. So that's the whole purpose of this discussion. So do you think that your relationship with your mom or your father affects how you see friendships, or affects how you navigate through friendships? Because it could be a positive navigation, because you and your mother may have a great relationship, so you can navigate through friendships positively, or vice versa.
Definitely has. Definitely has affected.
I think what would help this conversation, I'm sorry, I don't want to take over, is everybody giving a little excerpt on their, how they perceive, so that can add to the conversation and that can kind of direct it. You gave your story of it. Because I don't want to overstep on nobody's boundaries, because this is a sensitive topic.
Absolutely.
And I just want everybody to put what they want to put out there, so we can come to an agreement and build from there.
Yeah. But you start.
Okay. So, little background about me. Grew up in a single parent home. My mom had me when she was older. She was like 30, almost 40. So my mom is much older, very traditional, Southern, from Houston, Texas. My grandma's from Louisiana. They raised me. I am my mom's only child, but I am one of 7 on my dad's side. None of us grew up in the same household. We all, have different mothers. So I was, what other way to say that? So,
understand.
My dad, I know who my dad is. We have some sort of relationship. It could definitely be better. And the lack of his presence, like physically being around. When I was like young, he moved out here to Virginia Beach while I was still in Vegas. But like I have siblings in San Diego, I have siblings in Michigan, I have siblings, that were in Alabama. Like we were just all over the place. So, and I have a younger sister in Vegas as well. So I didn't get to see him that often. When he lived in Vegas, it was great, We used to take road trips and stuff sometimes to California to see my other siblings. But not having the presence, like when you say you're gonna pick me up, when you're gonna say you're gonna support me, when you're gonna say you're going to graduation, come. So that led to me in friendships. I don't have a lot of strong male friendships because of that. And I also know that a lot of my relationships or interaction with men was always like, you were inconsistent, you broke your promises, you weren't showing up for me like you said you would. And so I was attracting people who were similar to that experience. I guess rightfully so, but nonetheless, the Lord is working on who. But in terms of I didn't turn out like I didn't have that story like, oh, my daddy wasn't there, like daddy issues, I'm promiscuous, I go out here and I just do whatever. Like I actually was the exact opposite, and it's not that I didn't trust men. I had some male role models that were very strong in my life, but it wasn't like I could go to you and be like, hey dad, like this, I'm talking to this guy, or hey dad, I'm dealing with these type of emotional issues, because it just wasn't that type of channel of open communication like that. And so
that triggered me. Let me trigger me because you said that even though your dad wasn't around a lot, you didn't have like all those issues. You were good in that area. My dad was around, and I was the exact opposite. The exact opposite.
My mom, now it's interesting because my mom is very strong, like strong-headed, like strong black woman. She is all about like independence, all of that. And so she taught me how to be independent. She taught me like you don't need no man. She taught me about dating. She taught me about all of that. She introduced me to the church. And granted, my dad was in church. Like he went to traditional church, but it was like make sure you say your grace before your food. Say your prayer before you go to sleep. The surface level. My mom, on the other hand, she took me to church when I was young, and so I ended up growing a love for Christ myself, even, if my mom wasn't in church, So watching her friendships and her relationships did affect me and mine. So, like, I know older people, they've been friends with people for like 20, 30 years. Yeah. And so when I've seen relationships after that long get rocky, I be like, you always giving, and they're not giving in return, and you got people pulling on your heartstrings, and you every time you go to a store and you see something like, oh, such and such not like this. My mom is a giver. That's where I get it from. My mama literally would be like, oh, I saw this dining table, and you want it? Like I'm like, Mom, you have to stop being so like, let me give, and
but that comes from them not. Oh, that is so that is so bad. That comes from like them not healing, and you don't realize that because at first you watch your mom be this person, and you feel like you gotta give to all these people in these particular relationships, and then you get older, and you realize like, dog,
I gotta learn from mom.
But you also have to understand. I think back then people didn't establish boundaries. You can't establish boundaries without identity, and I keep saying that, but it's so important because when you start to understand who you are and what you need as it relates to friendships and stuff, you start establishing boundaries. Yeah. And boundaries weed out people. They weed out people who like to leave people and stuff like that. Because if you a real friend, then you'll be like, okay, I get it, I respect that, I understand that.
Or how about I show up? How about I meet you halfway? Like, how about this? is reciprocal. Like, it needs to be reciprocated. If I'm giving for you, I'm showing up for you, I'm helping you move from place to place, I'm helping you do this, take you here, Like, when is that gonna be not okay for me not to get it in return? I can't just be like, oh, I'm just gonna keep being me. Nobody's gonna be like me. I'm just keep giving, and then you're drained, and then you're hurt when people don't do it in return.
Exactly.
And I've seen the same thing in my relationships and friendships, and I'm just like, dang, like, I really gotta check that. And one thing too I noticed is that I can think the worst case scenario, because sometimes like parental experiences can make you think, okay, like if they have a personality trait, like for instance, like my mom would think of the worst case scenario, like, you know, this could be like if it's a health issue, oh my God, I told her this could be cancer, like, you know, like it's always cancer. It's never anything else. Like,
that's the worst.
Just drink some water. That's really what it is.
But you gotta think about it. You gotta think about it like how we was raised. You always thought about the worst because we was at that point of having the worst.
Yeah.
So exactly, survival mode. So you think if I project the worst, anything that comes in between that, oh, I'm good. But it's not. But it's not.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Bryan, share your story.
I am the oldest of 7. We all have.
You had 7 siblings,
Yes.
Bryan.
7 is a bad number. That's my favorite number. 7.
7, well, you know, 7 over 2.
2 boys, 5 girls.
I'm 6 girls, 1 boy.
Look at us.
We all have
Look at
different
this
fathers.
bonding. Woo, I love it. I love it. I love it. Bonding with bonding. Everybody on the podcast. Bonding with bonding.
I used to hate when people used to say that. I'm like, oh, get away from me.
Continue, sorry.
I'm the oldest of 7. We all have different fathers. My mom had me 2 months before her 16th birthday. So, and
So she had you. No, you're oldest. Never
Yeah.
mind, got you.
so it was never, because she had a kid when she was a kid, it was never, she never had a stable place.
Yeah.
So we always lived with our grandparents. Or her parents, because I don't think I know my dad. If I know him, I have met him twice. First time she was like, this is I ain't gonna say his name. We went over there, we hung out, me, her, and like we went over there, we watched TV, and then the second time I met him, he was moving from that place to another place, so I helped him move. But it was never an introduction of, hey, Bryan, this is your father.
Yeah.
So, and I never asked, because I figured if it was, you would say something.
You would tell me that, yeah.
And as an adult, I don't want to ask, because I kind of want to hit him in the mouth.
Okay. All right.
That's all right.
Let's bring it out. Bring it out.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Because why would you say anything?
Yeah.
My mom is usually pretty quiet. I was reading an article and they were talking about how people usually date, when they're dating, they date who their parent is like.
Yeah.
So if your mom is mean or like an ice queen, that's the type of women you would date.
That's what you're
Or if your
attracted,
father
yeah.
was like loud or abusive, that's the type of guy you would date. And I was like, but I'm not dating anybody. So
What does that mean?
the image that I had, the way our home was set up, her room was in the attic. And the image that I have, when I think about my childhood with her, my relationship with her, you had to walk through my room to get to the attic. And that is my vision, just her walking past me, up this dark stairway. Now, as an adult, I think she was dealing with depression and didn't know about it. Because she would come home and just go up into that dark room and just be in that dark room for the rest of the night. So, but it was nothing like, it wasn't a lot of pouring into that. Like every now and then we had a game night or something like that. But it wasn't like a full connect, like a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
So it's weird trying to navigate dating because I don't have a solid relationship with my mom. And I think I try to make it up in like friendships. So like my total friendship dynamic is kind of like this. It's like mostly women and like 1 or 2 guys.
Yeah.
So I think that's because I don't like what is that next thing or how do you pursue that relationship because it was never built with her.
That's good. That's good. Jonathan?
Mom, I want to apologize because I know you are a really closing individual and we really don't share what we've been through or my relationship with you, because you always told us what happened in this house.
Stay in this house.
My mom had me at 17 years old. She had my older brother at 14 years old. So before she graduated from graduated from high school, she had 2 kids.
Yeah.
So anybody in their right mind can understand that she had to have some kind of motherly guidance, which was my grandmother. I appreciate that my mother didn't abort me or my older brother, because if you think about it, you have a child at 14, then you have another one at 17. How can I deal with this?
Yeah.
So I praise my grandmother for stepping in and being that person who she was. God rest her soul. I just remember growing up, we were all over the place. We never had one stable home as kids. Staying with church friends, boyfriends, friends, who she thought were best friends, who she thought that had her best interest at heart. That kind of put us in harm's way. I'm just keep it as that. I'm not going to go deep into that. I have deep-seated hatred for those circumstances because things happen to me that I don't want to put out there, but it shaped me as a man, or who I thought was a man, or how a man's supposed to react. My father, I come to find out, I was named after him for 6 months. Him and my mother fell out, and then she changed my name to who I am now. So I never had a outright identity as a child, if you really think about it. Struggled a lot. You think about it, and then by the age of 24, my mom had 3 kids. So you gotta think about it. Just imagine ourselves at 24. What were we doing in college? If we were in college, working. Just imagine
not able to provide for 3 kids.
Just imagine having 3 kids.
Myself.
Yeah. So I mean, she did the best that she could. I praise that woman for who she is. Put us in church early, direction of my grandmother. Put the fear of God in us. And the reason why I say the fear of God, because you know black mothers, hey, you do that? And it's funny because I was looking at a tweet earlier, and people were saying that, have you answered your mother with what? And a different cultural view was saying that, oh, we was in a lax home, and yeah, I can answer my mom as saying what? Did somebody that aligned with us culturally said, I still won't answer to my mother with what? I still, to this day, I still fear my mom.
She said it multiple times, like,
What'd you say? Yeah.
No, it's like, but it's like this. Hey, Bryan, you say what? Oh, you know. Yeah. So that's why I said she put the fear of God in us, and she did the best.
Wait, hold that thought. You got a final thought before you slide out?
I just want to say be surrounded by community, because conversations like these, even though we might not be therapists, are healing because we're allowed to talk about them in a safe environment. And yeah, therapy is always helpful. Much prayer, and talk to your parents. Like, even though it may seem hard to address these issues, when you have the conversation with that parent, they might understand your perspective a little different and be like, well, babe, like, this was all I had. You know, so I did it the best I could. You didn't come with a manual or nothing like that, and it could really heal your relationship. So that's my closing word.
Thank you. Love y'all. Love you. See you later. Put my name on all the pictures. Okay. Bring it back. Take 2. You were talking about your mom. So you were bringing your dad.
My father was a big-time drug dealer in Southeast DC. he wasn't in my life for probably 17 years, but I always remember my father, and this is the crazy thing, coming through on all the benchmarks. 6th grade graduation.
Yeah.
Well, I went to middle school, and then in DC you have a thing called elementary, middle school. So middle school was 6th, 7th, and 8th. Junior high school was 7th, 8th, and 9th. So yeah. They kind of don't exist. They kind of don't exist today, but back then, that was a thing. So I went from elementary, he was there. Middle school, I didn't graduate because my mother put me out of it. I was bad as crap. So I went from there, and I went to junior high school, and he was there. 9th grade graduation. High school graduation, he was there. College graduation, he was there.
Because in his mind, he probably felt like, I'm here when it counts. In his head, like, he probably felt like those milestones was like, if I don't show up for nothing else, I'm going to show up for this.
Right.
But yeah, here when it counts, it really didn't matter to me because I had strong black women around me. So I never subscribed to that idea that you really had to have a father figure in your life because the black women that was around me, I got all aunts. I got an uncle that had a PhD that was highly intelligent. So I really didn't need a father figure because the women in my life like really showed me.
But you had it. Like, even though you felt like you didn't need it, you probably felt like you probably developed a space in you where you was just like, he ain't here, so I don't need him. But you still had your uncle. You had presence. And some people don't have that or have the stability where somebody's going to pour into them in that way that would change them, or their perspective could be totally different.
But
because
honestly,
I didn't have a father.
Honestly, my uncle wasn't there because he had his own family. So I really had to rely on my older brother and my uncle. At sometimes the relationship was kind of contentious because my grandmother put him forth as like the golden child.
Yeah.
He was the smart one. He went to private school, so it's like you had to be like him. And if you're not anything like that, you're a failure. I was a C. I was an average student. I mean, I was more in the streets than I really wanted to be because.
But see, the thing about that, nobody would know that today. Like nobody would be like, you was that. Nobody would know that.
And that's what I really attribute to my mom and my grandmother because the circumstances how we grew up and the circumstances of how we are today. My older brother, he's a SES. Me, I'm very successful in my own right. My uncle, he's a doctor of kinesiology. He graduated with a PhD in kinesiology. He's a physical therapist. He has his own practice. Kinesiology is like the study of the limb, so like physical therapy. So when you get into a car crash and your knee or your ankle or something like that So I mean, we all are successful in our right. So I like when I talk about parent trauma, it's separate from how we were raised because parent trauma has tentacles that reach way deeper.
But I feel like it's inclusive.
It's inclusive.
With how you were raised, at least in my circumstances, when you think about how your parents navigate, like how my mom raised me is different from how my father raised me.
Yeah.
And I feel like my father had more, for my father, I don't know what made him go in this direction, but like me and my dad, we best friends. And we've been best friends since I was a kid. Like my dad would tell me everything, probably stuff that I didn't need to know as a child as far as, having responsibilities and so on and so forth. Make like, if so-and-so asks you where I'm at, tell them I'm over X, Y, and Z, but I'm gonna be really, I'm gonna be here. You know what I'm saying? So, but I know that there were circumstances in his childhood that made him retreat the way that he did. Like, I know that my dad dealt with rejection issues as it relates to like his siblings and so on and so forth. And some of that stuff has trickled down into me. And the same for my mom. Like, as I got older and watched my mother with her siblings and her parentals, my grandmother, I now understand why she is the way that she is. I don't know if she understands why she is the way that she is, but I absolutely see why she navigates or moves the way that she does because of how my mom is the oldest of her siblings. So she was duped with the responsibility of taking care of everybody.
Yeah.
And then she moved to the East Coast and got a good government job.
That
And
good
because
government.
she had the good government job, it was just like, oh, your mom
I made it.
Yeah, like your mom made, she got it. So that is who everybody leaned on for stuff, financial support, like whatever it was. It was my mom's. It always deemed to be my mom's responsibility to be the person to save everybody.
Yeah.
When in actuality, I don't think anybody paid attention to when she was drowning and had nobody to save her. You know what I mean?
I don't even think they really paid attention to when they were drowning, but you can get into that later on.
No, because that's real.
It is.
Yeah.
But I'll wrap mine up. I want you.
Wow. Well, okay. I've heard so much of mine, like, and everyone else's so far. But single parent home, single mom. She also had me late in life, so like growing up, it was actually pretty. I had a pretty good childhood. Like, you know, but she was older, more established. So I always like, you know, knew where I was gonna like be staying. Like I just never had to like worry about anything. My father wasn't around. Well, let me take that back. Did he try to be around? I don't really know what the word he did. I knew who he was. Like he would, but he was very much so say one thing, action and didn't, whatever. And the older I got, I realized that his wife had a lot. Like she was being a puppeteer, and she somehow felt, I think, threatened by my mother and myself. Like she just decided she didn't like us. But as I got older, I learned that my father had cheated on her with my mom, but lied to my mom and was like, "Oh no, I'm single, like it's cool." Meanwhile, he had a child and this woman. So I think instead of her getting mad at him, she got mad at us.
Mom. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, but I was like, I'm an infant. I don't even know why you did.
I never understood that.
But really, my gripe isn't with her. It's with my father. Because you a grown man. Why you let her? I'm your child.
Exactly.
So what? I don't really care what you did. I'm your child. You need to be taking care of me. And what really pisses me off now that I'm older is like, because he had an absentee father situation. So like, I could have given you the benefit of the doubt and been like, well, you didn't know no better.
Yeah.
But you had a child, and he did everything for the other child.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, so you knew how to do it. You just chose not to do it with me.
Yeah.
And so we don't have a great relationship. I don't like that man at all. I'm not
Young man.
Young man. He gets the young man. I do not like him. It's all because of my mom that I even tolerate him at this point. Because when I did a complete 180 when I was little, you know, little girl. I was like, oh, maybe it's me.
Daddy.
Oh, I'll try to make him like me. Like I went through a tomboy phase because I was like, oh, maybe because I'm a girl. Because he got a son.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll, you know. Wow. I stopped because I used to call him daddy. I call him by his government name now. I do not call him because that's not what you are.
Yeah, I call my father. Hey.
You go by your first name.
Hey, what's up? Hey.
Like, no. I just started saying I love you to him maybe 2-3 years ago because I didn't feel like I did. I was like,
So it's healing.
Don't.
It's healing.
Oh yeah. We had an impromptu come to Jesus moment. We were at TGI Fridays. And I wasn't planning it. I don't know, but he said something, and when I tell you he tap danced on the trigger, I was like, well, we have this conversation now.
Yeah.
And so I thought I need to get out. And he called himself trying to cry, and I was like, shut up. This ain't about you. Because you trying to take my moment that I didn't know what was about to happen. I was like, this is not about you. You don't really have a right to try to cry right now. Like, I don't care. Like, because I've gotten to the point with him, it was like, because me and my mom over the years have literally told him what he needs to do. Like, repeatedly, my mom would say, you need to do this. I told him this is what I need from you. Like, I've come to you countless times throughout my life to try to help you be a father to me. Mm-hmm. And every time you throw your song.
Do you think that would have worked if he would have did A, B, C,
yes.
D? You
yes,
think so?
I really do because I was always there and waiting for him to be a father. Like, it went from waiting for you to be a daddy, just be a goddamn father.
I hate the comfort zone. I only want to be comfortable. In certain situations, we get in and freeze.
Yeah.
But you know why that
And
didn't...
I hate it.
Let me tell you this, right?
But can I tell you why that didn't really... I didn't care about that?